Okay, as a preliminary matter, this is Hillary Hedges-Rayport, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on this agenda are present and can hear me.
Hillary, you've been muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, with the two computers, I had to get the audio right. I was hearing myself echo. Okay, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. David Silver.
Present.
Angus McLeod.
Here.
Georgia Raisman.
Here.
Mickey Rowland.
Here.
Tom Montgomery.
Here.
Susan Handy. Okay, I see you saying yes, Susan. And we also have Rob McNeil here as our first special guest and participant, and another special guest, Henry Terry from the Town Association. Good morning. This open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th due to the state of emergency. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with deliberations. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. Unless participation is required by law, this meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Historical Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. The meeting is being recorded. All attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and to take care not to screen share your computer. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town website, except for the recently received preservation engineering report, which will be posted to the town website later. The public is encouraged to follow along using a posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, please permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct on our business. I will introduce each speaker. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone when you're not speaking. Remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair. And after the members have spoken, I will afford public comment to members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay. So I'm turning now to the meeting. Welcome everybody, hello. So we're gonna start with identifying that we have a quorum, which we have. We do have some minutes from the August 7th meeting. We also have minutes from our August 21st meeting, but they're still being edited, so we'll present those next time. Could I have any comments for changes or corrections to the minutes of August 7th? And if not, a motion?
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Georgia. And all in favor, David,
Aye.
Mickey, Tom,
Aye.
Georgia, you're in favor of your motion, Angus, and I am in favor of my motion. Okay. Do we have any public comment today? Seeing none. Announcements. So I do have a couple announcements. The first is that I did go ahead and send a note to the land bank about the Arthur Cooper Monument, or memorial rather, and they will look at that and take it up in their next meeting, which will be in October. Also, at our last meeting, we formed a work group to work on the question of renaming Coon Street. Not whether or not it will be renamed or what it will be renamed to, but just supplying some information for the board to consider in making their selection. They've already voted to rename it. And the people who are on that work group are David, Betsy Tyler, Fran Karchunin, and myself. And I just want to tell you, I've had a little bit of feedback from Betsy, and what she is finding out is so interesting. And I think it's going to be a really, really exciting revelation. So we're meeting as a group on Tuesday, but stay tuned. I think that's going to be really interesting for our town to see what Betsy's finding. Another announcement is that the grant cycle for applying for survey grants has been announced as being opened. The good news is that it's not being limited to just certified local government. So I mean, there are many reasons to become part of that program, for Nantucket to become part of that program, many training reasons and other reasons, but we'll still be able to apply for grants because they're going to be extending grant money to other applicants. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more with Holly, so just by way of announcement. I did get an announcement about a new public hearing for Vineyard Wind. Holly, do we need to make any announcement about that?
I would advise not to participate. We already have a good community agreement with them. Anything otherwise would hinder that. So that would be my strict recommendation.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, I'm on this email list from BOEM, so I received the.
I received that email as well. I received it as well. Just ignore it.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the staff update, Holly.
Sorry, I appreciate you guys' patience. I'm sharing our room with my daughter. She's in class and with her headphones in, so my internet's a little spotty, so I apologize. If you all participated or watched some of the videos, recordings, Resilient Nantucket was last Friday via Zoom webinar with the town of Nantucket, obviously, and our consultant, Lisa Craig. We also had Sarah White from MEMA and Shannon Holtz from the Barnstable County, who's a CFM, really bringing the disaster preparedness toolkit, part of our Resilient Nantucket project. That was the first community forum. And then we'll be having our additional community forums and actually a planning charrette soon to actually work on those design guidelines, and the other consultant who's working on this project with us on this. Also wanted to give a shout out to MPT. You're probably aware that last week they had their symposium, Rescuing History, and the town of Nantucket was included as a set of speakers. Myself, Chuck Larson, and Vince Murphy gave a presentation on Thursday, so I hope you all were able to watch it or watch the videos. They've actually had them posted. I really appreciate being able to continue working with MPT. They're the reason why I am where I am today. So I give them a lot of credit for personally. And then also wanted to let you guys put this on your calendar that I've been speaking with the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions still to bring you all camp training. I actually will have more conversations with them next week about the planning process of that. As you remember, we were going to have them come in May, but due to COVID, we've had to postpone. And so we're going to have a 2-day session via Zoom with the trainers in November 6th and 13th, which are Fridays, about 3 hours each in the morning. We will be having here shortly ways to register for that. To you all as commissioners, HDC commissioners, our advisory members, other people in the preservation world, and town staff. So look out for that, put that on your calendar. I highly recommend it to try to, participate in that. Please, please, please. This is something that the town is paying for. I will be receiving contract approval, hopefully here shortly, from the NPC Commission. And then what else do we have here? All right, and then also just as far as the certified local government perspective, obviously we still have planning support on the certified local government planning board, or excuse me, planning director and plus department. As of right now, I have not been able to have a final reading of our approval as far as being included with the HDC. As you are probably all aware, HDC is very, very busy with the multitude of applications that come through the office. It's unreal. We're meeting until 9:30, almost 10 o'clock at night every week, and in order to accommodate the public. So, they understand the importance of it. They've even had to have some special meetings for other important initiatives. They do understand the importance of this, so hopefully we'll be able to address it. I can't give you anything more than that. I do know that town council did make sure that there wouldn't be any issues as far, like we brought up before, as far as anything with our town charter, as well as the special legislation for HDC. Have not, nothing's negative in that regard, which is good. That's a plus in the right direction. But I will be speaking more with the town admin on getting that moving forward. So all I can ask for is patience, especially in this lovely world we're in. I think that was all that I had requested to have on the agenda. Am I correct? I think.
Yeah.
Look. Okay. All right. Turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Holly. One thing that about the certified local government that I wanted to mention that Holly referenced is that the HDC did talk about it, and I think it was a positive discussion. I mean, they talked about it in their special meeting and had as a next step just to make sure that there wasn't any contractual issue, and that now I'm hearing from you, Holly, that's been cleared, right? So
yes, town admin didn't see, or excuse me, town council didn't see any issues with our town charter or the special legislation.
Okay.
And that was the biggest thing that both, I assured HDC that when the planning director reached out to town council, that it was for the global aspect, making sure that there was no concerns from both the HDC's special legislation standpoint and the town charter. That was an overall. Yeah. And that was one of the things that HDC wanted to make sure. So yes.
So that at least that's progress. I mean, they had a discussion and we cleared this legal review. And then one other thing that I learned, I want to echo your shout out to NPT about the symposium. There was so much interesting material. I was only able to attend the first day, but it was terrific. And I learned that there's training and even some like special ability granted to CLGs for the FEMA flood guidelines and hazard. Is that true? Do you know much about that, Holly?
So basically, you know, again, I've stressed this, I don't know how many times, that Nantucket is unique in so many aspects. The fact that we are a national historic landmark district, okay, gives the, I guess, flexibility, if you will, for a historic structure, even if it's not, you know, documented 100%, to go through the historic determination process with the HDC to be able to receive waivers from certain building code and FEMA flood requirements. So I just want to put that out there. And any historic structure out there can go through that process to do that. What was mentioned is with our colleagues over on the Cape with the Cape Cod Commission, not every historic town on the Cape has that affordability, if you will, being an NHL. Most NHL districts, besides Nantucket, are very singular. You can have a historic district that's only one structure. You can have a historic district that is, and I'm talking about, you know, a historic district that is, you know, a couple of lots, whatever, or a block. The fact that Nantucket is an entire National Historic Landmark, it gives us the upper hand, if you will. So they have to lean on the CLG component through the National Park Service. Again, something obviously we're all striving for. So yes, being a certain CLG would be very beneficial in that process for exemptions with FEMA flood. But again, this is also where we're trying to create these design guidelines that are taking in all these different things into account. And I just want to also mention that Sarah White from MEMA and Shannon Holst from the Barnstable County and Cape Cod Cooperative Extension. We've had a sidebar conversation about how, and I've brought this up multiple times before, but I think Sarah as the MEMA rep is really understanding that this is a concern, is that there's not much communication about coastal communities that are historic with our SHPO, our State Historic Preservation Office, Massachusetts Historical Commission. And so that was something that Sarah didn't realize. And so she's reached out to a couple other folks up in the state level to see how we can kind of wrap that up. Again, Nantucket's being looked at as a front runner, a trailblazer, if you will, in this whole resiliency planning effort. You know, this MVP grant that we received is supposed to be an example of what other coastal communities are doing, and that's why there's so much interest in what we're doing here. So hopefully that will be a good conversation. They'll be able to see what we're doing, and maybe the SHPO office will be able to, you know, it's outlined in their preservation plan for the state about being resilient for their coastal communities. So again, it's an initiative that they have listed that they need to work on. So I'm hoping there'll be a lot more dialogue. I've been concerned since day one that there hasn't been much communication or efforts, if you will, with the MVP, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness section of the state government, MEMA and MHC. So hopefully there'll be more of a coordination because of these efforts. So that was a long drawn out process to say, yes, CLG would help us, but we're also a step above and beyond because we're a National Historic Landmark.
Okay, thanks. And it's also an opportunity for all of us to say thank you for everything that you did to bring that terrific Resilient Nantucket workshop to us on Friday. And I don't know if other people have been tuning into the various both coincidental climate events and climate awareness human activities that have been happening this week. I mean, we've simultaneously had these opportunities to have workshops on climate change and preparedness for that and adaptation in the face of that, while also watching a house fall into the ocean in Cisco over the course of just a few days. And, you know, I really
I'm just very grateful to the many people in our town who've been saying, look, we need to grapple with this, and we need to grapple with it quickly. And I'm finding my own mind changing and evolving, and the way I'm thinking about things changing. So, and that's because of the work that the town and the nonprofits that are working on this have taken on. So just acknowledgement for that. Okay, one procedural question. Holly, when you have the recording, can you set it in the gallery view? Is that possible? I just think it's nice for the benefit of the public to not just see the speaker, but to just see the room, so to speak.
I don't know how to do that. I'm pretty good at Zoom, but I don't have that capability when I record. I hit the button and then that's it. And then
Do you
Florencia,
have-
our,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you have
Florencia,
your screen?
our,
Sorry, I just
Um,
wanted to ask, do you have
you-
your screen set to gallery view or speaker view?
I don't even know what I have it on. Gallery view. Gallery view.
Okay, so
Is what I
maybe
have
it'll
it set.
capture it as a gallery.
It
Okay.
should. It should be able
Yeah,
to.
I just think it's nice for people to be able to see everyone who's here. So, okay, now with no further ado, we have Rob McNeil. Rob, thank you so much for being here, for everything you do, for joining with us. We have some information to share with you about historicals for streets, and this is a continuation of the meeting that we had back in February when we were all in a room together. Seems like a different lifetime. But at that point, you know, we had this discussion about specifications versus goals, and how we could really help the town and the Department of Public Works by focusing on clearly explaining preservation goals, and then also supplying some additional backup information that you could share with your contractors to help them come up with specifications that would help meet those goals.
Thank you very much for having me back. And I appreciate seeing the results that were shared with me, at least the draft of the goals for preservation of historic streets and walks. It looks a little different. What was sent to me was a little different than what's in the agenda, but I'm looking forward to going through all the materials. And I did see that there was some materials sent late last night from Mr. Brodsky, I think his name is. So I'm looking forward to going through that stuff as well. Yeah.
Well, great. I want to make sure that we have the right information. So I'm going to share the goals, which we've had draft goals for a long time, but we consider these, obviously everything can be discussed and revised, but this is, to us, final goals. And I'll present them, and then we'll make sure that you get the final copy. And, also talk about what format is best and most useful for you. And yeah, so the report from Matthew Brodsky, I apologize that it wasn't delivered earlier. We were hoping to have it on Monday. It's just a different world. People don't have, COVID time is different. So, we shared it when it was available. There's a lot of fantastic information. We can make some quick reference to that, but I think as you mentioned, it does take a longer time to absorb that. There's a ton of great historical and engineering information in there. So Holly, if you could allow me to share my screen, I will go ahead.
Go for it. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so
Rob, what we did was we took, we had this document, it was very text heavy. It had a lot of information about the materials in the street. It had a lot of do's and don'ts. It did get into stuff like specifications, and it just wasn't really, we got the sense, and you said as much, that it wasn't really working for you. It wasn't really useful in terms of communicating with the town, useful information that you could use to do your job of repairing these streets. So we really stepped back and we thought more about high level goals for preservation. And so we wanted to talk instead about the, specifics in the street, instead talk about approaches to preservation and some vocabulary that I think if we could standardize on would really help us all talk about these site specific needs. And so it starts with understanding what is the right treatment that any particular site in the town needs to have. So preservation on Nantucket has taken different approaches over the years. There's preservation, which has a specific definition, which is about repair and maintenance. There's also restoration, which also has a specific meaning about removing later additions and restoring something that has had significant decline. Rehabilitation and reconstruction, and these are terms that are defined by the Department of the Interior. And we think if we start talking about these terms as a community, it might be helpful to really get on the same page about everything. So just a little more about these different terms. So an example of preservation would be the Pacific Club, which is a building that has endured over time and has been maintained. It hasn't had a lot of changes. It hasn't had, well, it did burn and was rebuilt. But it, so before it burned, it had a gambrel roof. It was rebuilt with a gable roof. We're not restoring it to that gambrel roof. We are keeping the Pacific Club, maintaining it in its good condition. Rehabilitation would be taking something and changing it to meet a current need. So you've got a historic object or property, you want to use it in a little bit of a different way. An example of this is the Athenaeum, where we have the original building and they needed more space. They wanted to add a children's library. So they figured out how to make an addition to the Athenaeum in a way that was very sympathetic, met their needs, looked good in the context. It also has accessibility. It has accessible entrances now, but still looks very historic. So that would be an example of a rehabilitation. A restoration would be taking a property that that had been changed in an unsympathetic way and reversing those changes so that it looks the way it did at a certain time, or a property that has had so much decline that it really does need extensive repair. And an example of this would be the oldest house, the Jethro Coffin House, which was kind of a ruin, and they took apart a neighboring same period house and put it back together. Or the Jared Coffin House is a federal mansion, and when it was a hotel, the Ocean House had this wraparound Victorian porch. And I think it was in the 70s, they took that porch off so that it would look like the original federal mansion again. And reconstruction is when you have something that is historic and it's just been totally lost. So an example would be Great Point Light, which is new materials. It's a reconstruction, but it's done to specifications that you can understand. So that's a reconstruction. And we think that there would be a benefit in talking about pavement in terms of these treatments and selecting the right treatment to match the site. So these are some examples of sidewalks that are really in good overall condition. They meet the use requirement. They have this authentic patina that we want to preserve. And in some cases, like this one with the circle, it just needs some basic repair. So we would say choose the preserve treatment, maintain and repair these as needed. And one thing that you said, Rob, when we met, maybe it was when we had, I guess maybe it was on the phone with us, or maybe it was back in February. Anyway, that there's this sense that, so old sidewalks should be crooked. Well, we just want to say for the record that the well-maintained historic sidewalks are flat and safe, and that's how they were built. And these quality materials can be put in flat, safe condition again. So other sites would be an example of a restoration. So that's where you don't really want to, if it were usable, it would meet the current use and needs. So you're not looking to really change it, but it's declined to such a point that you really need extensive repair. And these are some really familiar sites. I included Stone Alley. I mean, I'm not suggesting that, well, I think it'd be wonderful to maintain or to restore Stone Alley, but I just think it's a pretty interesting example of how this alley was carefully cobbled in the past, and it just had dirt piled over it. It's not really in use anymore in the same way that it was. And then the third treatment that we think will be most commonly applicable to pavement in our historic town is to rehabilitate. And that's where we have historic material that's part of our historic town, but it's just not meeting the needs of the community any longer. This is a living town. It's not a museum. You know, Nantucket is not Stowbridge Village. So how do we take these sidewalks and help them meet the needs of the community? This is the engineering, this is the drawing that was done in 2017. And you can see it has these new crosswalks here. This is the Pacific Club, and this is Main Street and Easy Street. It has the crosswalks that have been built, and then it also has areas that haven't been built, like these bump outs here. And we would say that this actually ended up not being a rehabilitation, it was a renovation, because it took what was old and made it new. And we'd like to find a path forward to have successful rehabilitations and avoid renovations when, excuse me, when we can. So this is the historic goal for pavement: to retain the authentic character of the streets and sidewalks in our historic town. Regardless of what treatment is appropriate for the site, this is always the goal. And just to understand, well, where does that character come from? It comes from the authentic material, and it's material from all different time periods. It comes from form, shape, and scale, from finish and patina, including materials that have settled and worn with time. And this sort of settlement is why we would always prefer the preservation treatment if that's appropriate for the other goals. Because when you lift things up and you relay them, you lose some of this patina that is particularly appealing for historic Nantucket. It also includes street furniture and objects that have endured. So for instance, there's this metal bar in front of the Pacific Club that's just been there. We don't, it might be possible to know why it's there. It might have been a horse hitch. It might have been just a safety treatment, but that would be an example of something that it's just been there so long. And at this point it's interesting. We wouldn't want to see it removed. And again, you know, the goal is the same regardless of the standard of treatment, and historic does not mean crooked and full of tripping hazards. Nothing is maintenance free. We need to maintain these materials. So we think that this goal, you know, which is not really a revelation. I think we probably knew this from the beginning, and everybody probably can agree on this goal. But yet we can agree on this goal, but have different interpretations and end up in different places, and they don't all make everybody happy. So we think it has the greatest chance of being achieved if you at the DPW could work with the appropriate groups in town to identify the right treatment. Is it preservation? Is this place a candidate for preservation? Is this place a candidate for restoration or rehabilitation or reconstruction? And just take renovation off the table. Identify the historic material at the location. We can use the Preservation and Institute of Nantucket's Historic Streetscape Study, which is kicking off soon and will include LiDAR surveys We can also use Matthew Bronski's preservation engineering report, which has photos of some of the historic curbing and identification of them. And it follows the Secretary of the Interior's core principles for work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I know, you presented that in your sidewalk work group and to the select board in the past. They're really well known. And it seems that could maybe be something you could give to your contractors. So that's sort of global core principles for historic properties, but we also now with the engineering study have specifics for Nantucket. So we have specifications that are identified just for Nantucket streets, just for Nantucket soils, just for the materials that we have on Nantucket, and Matthew talks about it at length. So we want to align the project with that. And then to the extent that it's a rehabilitation, reviews changes to scale, shape, and material with either us or the HDC. We understand there's going to be accessibility issues. That's one of the main reasons for doing this project. And there's a process for identifying waivers and identifying solutions for compliance that are compatible with the historic nature. These are the core principles for work. I mean, the summary here is that, you always leave the historic material in its location. You reuse it. If you don't have to lift it, you don't. You have a preference for repairing and reusing material rather than replacing it, because that's how you maintain the historic look. Also, this isn't really part of the Secretary of the Interior's core principles, but sustainability is a community-wide goal and it's consistent with preservation. So we have, especially in our downtown, there's a blade of clay that runs geologically through the downtown. So we have sandy clay or clayey sand soil, which is particularly well suited as a bedding material. And what we're seeing is a lot of digging this up, and we'd like to maybe think differently about that. We think that it would be good for the project and good for sustainability and consistent with these principles. Wherever there's replacement or additional material required, it's sourced from salvage, or there's an effort to match existing size and color. And I think you're already doing that very well. You're also already leaving the materials in. A lot of these things you're already doing. We're just putting them down in one place. We don't try to create a false sense of history by removing features that have acquired significance. And we wanted to emphasize that concrete is a mid-century material and it has age. If it's in good condition, it should be retained in our view. And new repair should be distinguishable from the old. So you're not, again, trying to create a false sense of history. And generally the additions and alterations are minimal and compatible with the character and aren't trying to erase the historic material or form. The changes should be reversible without harm or loss of the historic material. We've had a lot of discussions in this group and with you and with the town about our concern about concrete. And we've taken a lot of comfort from Matthew's report, which supports the use of concrete as long as there's ample drainage opportunity at the bottom, and also recommends some sacrificial barrier could be used between the concrete. So it was just really nice to do the preservation engineering study and get some expert opinion, additional opinions, expert opinions about that. So just to be, every block of Nantucket is unique. That's what's so valuable about our town. And we're gonna have to come up with there's not gonna be any blanket plan, right? So every block is gonna have unique treatments, and we're gonna have to make decisions. So following these principles that we've put out and the goal would tell you that these tree wells, even though they look unexpected or weird, they're part of the historic character of the street. And these concrete curbs, unless they're crumbling and beyond repair, we should leave them there. It tells us something about how people solved problems on the street. So, you know, the trees were actually planted right at the edge of the street. And as they grew, people had to solve problems just as we have to solve problems with trees now. And back then, this is how they solved that problem. They thought this was a good thing to do. And you know, people do things and then later in hindsight, it looks like a bad idea. This has lasted. So we would say if it's lasted this long, it should stay. So in summary, regardless of the site, the historic goal is always the same: to retain the authentic character of the streets and sidewalks in our historic town. And we recommend these steps. That first, we would survey the site and select the appropriate treatment. We would identify historic material at the site. We would follow the core principles for work on historic sites and align the specification with the preservation engineering study that's been provided by the Community Foundation. And that we would review any changes to scale, shape, materials with the MHC or the HDC, and you know, have some kind of iterative feedback loop about addressing the specification as needed. And that's pretty it. I mean, what do you think?
Again, I really appreciate the efforts that the commission has put into this this first draft for goals. To me, there's going to be quite a bit of review. There's a lot of information here. In addition to this, to take a look at the Community Foundation's grant-funded report as well that came in last night. So I think there's quite a bit there, and I really applaud the efforts of the commission to date. I know there's a lot going on town-wide, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Well, we really feel the same way, Rob, and you know, we really appreciate everything you're doing on Nantucket to get the streets in good shape. You got a long, long list of responsibilities, and we really hope that by, you know, communicating clearly about this, that we can assist you and also assist the town. I want to invite the other commissioners to make comments, ask questions.
Hillary,
Anybody?
Georgia.
Yeah. Hi, Georgia.
I think this is a terrific summary of steps. And I think all of us on the commission would really like to see those steps followed to the extent it's practical from Rob's point of view. And I think the fact that they have saved cobblestones and hopefully saved historic bricks will enable them to follow some of these principles in terms of using the historic materials going forward, and maybe redoing some of the things that have been done recently inappropriately in a way that will make them align in a more aesthetically appropriate way with our character than they currently do as having been recently done. It's great work, Hillary, it really is. And the simpler we can make it for the DPW, I think the better it is. And this page is a great simplification.
Thanks, Georgia. I have a question. Does anybody else want to make any comments or weigh in about these, this singular goal and these recommended steps?
Hi, Hillary. This is Angus. I just want to echo what Georgia has said. And I think this does, I think, to identify what mode of repair or maintenance in this format, I think is helpful and does simplify things. So we know where we're headed in particular projects. I think this is, in combination with the survey and the guidelines, I feel like this is a really good piece of information.
Thank you, Angus. Did anybody else? I have a couple other things I wanted to cover. I don't know if anybody else wanted to make any comments about this page or these. I just wanted to ask Rob, as the next step, you know, I know you have your crew and you have a project laid out. Back pre-COVID, we were going to have a walking tour and an information session about the downtown sidewalk plans. What's currently envisioned as far as reviewing those plans? Or
the next steps right now is to focus on Easy Street as our next project, and to turn the corner and get Lower Broad sidewalks done. Right now, we're waiting on the Land Bank Park to finish up before we go down that road. But I would certainly invite the opportunity to meet with the commission on site to get feedback on, to take a look at the plans that were originally laid out with the transportation planner and the engineer at the time, to get feedback to finish up to ready that for construction on the heels of the Land Bank Park being completed, so that we can hit the ground running in the spring and get that done before summer. So I'm available to meet with the commission if they're interested in meeting on site. I'm happy to make that happen as well.
that would be terrific, Rob. So maybe we could get that set up as the next step. And we, you know, Mickey and Angus and I sat down and looked at the plan. I have it right here. So we'd love to do a walk, and maybe we could do it at a time when you've had a chance to read Matthew's report, and we could talk about, you know, something in there too, and we'll also loop back with Marty Hilton. We have a kickoff meeting for their downtown sidewalk survey. The Preservation Institute in Nantucket is kicking off next week. So we could do all of those things with a socially distanced in-person meeting.
That sounds great.
Okay, Rob.
Thank
Does
you all
anybody
for
else-
your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Take care. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Great. So I guess we can talk about that meeting, which would be an in-person meeting when we go over our schedule, which is something that's on the agenda. So the next thing on the agenda is mission statement. I hadn't planned to go through working on our mission statement in detail today, but Holly, do you want to share what I put on the in the agenda? So at this point, we don't have a mission statement on our website, and the whole point of having our mission is to communicate to the community what we do. And you know, we're talking about the mission statement, but really what we should be talking about is communication about what we do, and community understanding, and understanding within the commission about what our tasks are, and having agreement and acceptance from everybody about those tasks. So we have a meeting set for October 2nd at 10 a.m. I've confirmed that Dawn will be able to join us. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here today. And I'm actually wondering, I mean, that's going to be a topic, is going to be mission statement. And even though we had a couple meetings, and I think a collaborative editing and working together to come up with Holly, with the mission statement before, there were people who I think had opinions and weren't at the table. We did present it to the HDC, but maybe we need to create another forum to allow them really solicit their concerns, thoughts, input. We do have a mission statement that Holly has worked on with, I assume, with other folks at Plus, and that's been presented for consideration. So I'm just wondering, what should we do about this meeting on the 2nd to make it successful? Because we want to address concerns and we want to get a mission statement that everybody can agree on. When I say everybody, I mean the town and different constituents up on our website. What do you guys think?
Would you mind if I put up that mission statement that I sent to everybody, the very simple
Yeah,
one
it's in
up
the
on screen?
packet. It's
Okay.
actually in the packet, Holly. If you look
Okay.
at that page, and I included all three, and all three have issues because I ran them by Chris Skelly, who's the director of local operations, and got some comments on all three of them. And I think they're really good comments. So, he felt all three of them needed work. While Holly gets those statements up on the screen, does anybody want to comment on how we can run a solid process that helps everyone feel included and heard for this mission statement review? Do I need to call on people? Yep, Clement.
I look through this. I really like Chris's comments. Obviously, he's seen a lot of mission statements of historic district commissions, and I think we could take maybe the latest proposed mission and add some of his verbiage, what he was saying at the bottom about the language, the Historic Commission about identifying and documentation of historic resources, that should be a forefront of our mission. So however we include some of his language in there would be great.
I would like to just let the commission know that, again, after the discussion with the select board, I took it upon myself to try to, come up with this proposal, trying to make everybody happy. And there are, since this proposal, there was a couple of things that I got further guidance on from the planning director, as far as just a couple of words to revise. So for instance, if you look under plus proposal, the NHC was created for the preservation, protection, and development. Development is a different word that really doesn't go well. So I want to replace that with enhancement, because that's exactly what it is doing. It's enhancing our historic and cultural assets of the NHL. And then there was a section that I had right here. In order to protect Nantucket, I don't know if you all would agree on this, but that is kind of broad. in the sense it's just kind of elementary. And again, I wrote it, so I will take that blame. So I was, trying to think of some other, in order to something to change that. So I just wanted to let you know this is kind of still a working document, but these comments from Chris Skelly, I agree with him wholeheartedly, what he had said. So I hope you all take that into consideration as well.
Hillary, this is Tom. I've got a
Hi,
question.
Tom.
Is everything that we're seeing here in blue from Chris Skelly?
Yes, the blue is our comments from Chris Skelly.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Hillary, this is Don. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Don.
Hi. So I like Holly's first statement. We're created for, or we exist to recommend or created for the preservation, protection, and development of the historical assets and so on for our landmark. To me, that's our mission. The other stuff says we can do this by making recommendations, coordinating with NHC, identifying under Chris, language about community-wide. I can't see it because it's down below, but some of the things, but those are actions. That we exist to preserve the historical assets and preservation of Nantucket landmark. Those things to me are all what we could do, like recommend to the board, document historic resources, community-wide preservation planning. I mean, those are actions that we're going to take, but to carry out our mission. To me, the very first half of that statement is our mission. That's what we're here for, is to preserve, create, protect, and recommend. And then what we do is down below, and it's just the bullet points of we do this by, and I would just add those action items if we want, but our whole purpose is that first half of Holly's statement, I believe. But that's me. I may be way off base, but I believe that we're created for the preservation, protection, and enhancement of the historical and archaeological assets of Nantucket National Historic Landmark. And then we do this by making recommendations, identifying and documenting historic resources, community-wide preservation planning. Those are all things we do, but that's not those are things we elect to do because our mission is to preserve, protect, and develop historical assets. So that's my perspective. Is a very simple statement, but the stuff we do is we elect to do those because that's what allows us to enable us to fulfill our mission. Just a perspective as I looked at it.
This is David. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of want to follow up with what Don was saying. So, regarding I think the reason that Chris gave that feedback is because he wants to kind of, in our mission statement, somehow, draw a line between, the auspices of what we do and then the auspices of what the HDC does. And I think that that's a very important piece of the mission statement, because I think there's already, as Chris has pointed out, a lot of confusion about the responsibilities. And I think formalizing that in our mission statement could go a long way. And I think that was the point of Chris's feedback there in blue.
This is
Good-
Tom.
good
I
point,
agree with
David.
what David just said. What Chris has put in here is the building block of a local historical commission is, community-wide historic preservation planning. And that is what separates us from the HDC. I don't know how we put that in there, but I think that's a good thing to do.
Hi, this is Angus. In reference to the wording in the plus proposed, the development, it really is, it's rather than enhancement or development, I think it's identifying and establishing our historical and archaeological assets. So however that can work.
And David here again. And furthermore, with Chris's comments on that last page, but below the part about distinguishing our role from the HDCs, the wording advocates through the Board of Selectmen. I also like Chris's point here because we just met with the DPW director and there was no one from the select board present. So I think we're doing more than just working advocating through the selectmen. We do a whole lot more, and I think it's important to stress that. And I understand how Chris sees that language as problematic. I do too.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with everything everyone has said. I mean, the mission statement is about communication, and we want to be sure to communicate to the public. And this isn't just, people who are preservation oriented or people who are super familiar with Nantucket. I mean, if you visit Nantucket and you want to buy a home and they tell you, well, you're going to have to go through the HDC if you want to do anything to this home, people are going to end up on our website by mistake. And, we need to communicate that actually there's two historic preservation municipal commissions and they work together in very different ways. And so we really do have to have something there about the different approaches to protecting our historic landmark. And one is architectural review. And then the other is knowing and understanding and documenting what we have and planning for, yes, the development of our landmark in a way that still retains and preserves the history. And specifically the structures and landforms that are particular to Nantucket. I mean, I'm wondering if it might be helpful to also just look at the page, since this is about communication, just put our communication professional hat on and look at the page. If you look at different town board pages, a lot of them say very different things. Some of them don't have a mission statement. Some of them just say what they do. Some of them have, a lot of information and about different things. So maybe we should just think about it with fewer constraints about how can we really help the community and what do we really want people to know on this webpage. In terms of having a successful meeting, I mean, Holly, there was comment from Andrew that he had concerns. There was comment from Steve Cohen that he had concerns about what we were doing. And I've had a couple people, say, well, it seems like overreach, or it seems like you're trying to intrude on the HDC. You're trying to make new laws, you're trying to rewrite this. We're not trying to do any of that. So I'm wondering, do we want to invite more people to our meeting on October 2nd to have not just a discussion about mission statement, but also, address concerns and really talk about our goals again and what we expect to do, and try to dispel some of this feeling that we're really trying to rewrite a whole bunch of laws or take over things. Yes, Tom.
What people specifically are you thinking about inviting?
Tom, I can't hear you. Can you?
Muted, I don't know.
Just speak a little closer to the microphone.
Already.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
What people are you specifically talking about inviting?
Well, I would certainly like Andrew to be at this meeting, because I don't want to assume that we're doing something that he's going to support because we haven't heard from him, and then find out actually that he's not going to support it. Holly,
To be honest,
Yeah.
I personally, I don't think Andrew's going to have the time, to be honest with you. He's on so many different aspects of different things. So he's already explained to me that, I am the staff for, staff liaison for you all. I can receive additional comments as necessary to, from him. But I do like this idea, this approach of inviting the public and people that have stressed concerns on the mission statement to meet with you all before it's presented and approved by the select board. Have this vetted process publicly. I think that's a fantastic idea. We have the information from Chris Skelly, our MHC contact. I think that I was very appreciative of his time, to be honest with you. The fact that he spent the time, 2.5 hours in one of our meetings, that was just great. As much as town employees are, very stretched, I know the state is as well. So that was very, very appreciative. But no, I highly recommend having this. I'm glad that Dawn will have the time to sit with you all and give her recommendations and whatnot. I think she brings a great aspect to your commission, with the fact that she used to work for the HDC, has that initial background. So I think it would be a beneficial meeting, definitely, of reaching out to those people that have stressed their concerns on that mission. And, quite frankly, maybe there's a way to have, again, I'm an advocate of short and sweet. But sometimes short and sweet needs to be identified, maybe in a footnote, if you will, to bring people to where is this legislation, or where is this state law that gives them that authority. I think that's important, especially stressing that the difference between the two commissions. You're probably familiar that the HDC has been working on that through their commissioner Welch. And he puts footnotes on the bottom, and I think that's a great idea. Again, I am a big advocate, and I think I've stressed this to both you all and the HDC, that you all work together. That's of course during COVID it's very different, and difficult, but you all work together. You both have a common goal for the protection and enhancement of this National Historic Landmark. But it is imperative that it is shown how the two commissions work together. And that way the layperson cannot, won't confuse the two. I will say that, there are people that reach out to me. I receive emails. They know that I'm the preservation planner for both commissions, and they, will send me an email. Hey, I'm interested in this piece of property. Do you know if there's a preservation restriction on it? Do you know this? Do you know that? And then when I let them know, yay or nay, or you should maybe talk to NPT if you have any concerns or questions on maybe the historic aspect of the structure. It's great when they say, I'm a staunch preservationist. I love historic preservation. That's great, especially when it's about a structure that's on the market. So I digress, but I think it would be great to reach out to those folks that stressed interest and concerns for the mission statement.
David?
Can I,
Yeah.
may I make a comment?
Sure. Let's hear from David, and then we'll hear from you, Georgia.
Thank you.
David?
And maybe this goes without saying, but I think it would be also helpful to have our, resource advisory group present to give feedback as well. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but maybe that goes.
Yeah, they're welcome, to every meeting, and we always invite them. But I think what we're talking about is making a special effort for this meeting. Georgia?
I hope this comment isn't too late. I really like Skelly's point about mentioning identification and documentation of historic resources, because I think that goes as an argument against the mission creep comments. And community-wide historic preservation planning in the sense of having potentially having public meetings. Also, that makes me a little nervous, because that looks like it might be mission creep. But I don't know why we can't say, in lieu of that word development, either enhancement or just put in identification and documentation of historical and archaeological assets. It keeps us far away from architectural items that are within the purview of the HDC. And that will, I think, defeat some of the mission creep and regulatory arguments that were being heard against us. So
Hey,
my
Hillary.
suggestion
Don?
we can
Yeah.
enhance the mission statement with that identification and documentation language.
Okay, Don?
So a crazy idea, but when I work with corporations and there's a lot of departments with confused roles, who owns what pieces? It's not unusual to do a role clarity chart where you would put HDC at the top of one column, us at the top of another, maybe the state, maybe the select board. And we just say, okay, what's the action to identify preservation resources? Who owns it? Somebody gets the A, says you're responsible for it and you own it. And you can get clarity if we're concerned about somebody being confused about what we do versus the HDC and so on, that if we get the major items that we think cause most of the conflict and be very clear about who owns that item, or at least is leading the responsibility for that item, it might help people get more comfortable that we're not trying to take over their role, we're just trying to be clear about what we do versus what you do. And sometimes a chart like that helps people get clarity so they don't feel uncomfortable then about where I go for something.
I think that's a great idea.
I've done plenty of them, so if we need to do one, it's just a matter of deciding what are the elements you want to talk about, and then say who owns it. And it may be that, for example, sometimes we use, I'll make an example. In R for responsible, you're responsible for getting this done, but sometimes other people have a C. You have to consult with somebody else to make certain it gets done. So sometimes you can find that we will consult with groups, but we won't be the one responsible for it. So that discussion is healthy and it gets us clarity around what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, it would be great if we could have a representative from the HBC come to our meeting.
Right, that's right. And it might be an addendum to our mission statement, but just for clarity around, here's what we see our role is, and these are the elements we're going to be looking at. And to George's point, there's documentation and resources and everything else. It would be, we own that for certain things.
Yeah. Can I just share a document with you? Holly, could you give me permission? Well, maybe I can share my screen anyway.
You should be able to.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with something. So when we think about, mission creep, I think it's fair to say that none of us really knew, maybe Holly knew, but like when we signed up and we formed this historical commission, I certainly didn't really know what a historical commission was supposed to do. I knew that there was stuff that Nantucket needed and that this commission could do it, but we hadn't had training. We are going to have training, which is going to be hugely helpful, and it's going to be a joint activity. But as soon as we were able to take a breather from all of these backlog of reviews that we were doing, I looked around and said, all right, I need to understand really what commissions do, not what this commission does, but what do commissions do? We're not alone. And this was the most clear-cut, helpful form. Can everybody see this? Local Historical Commissions in Massachusetts, a summary sheet for new commission members. So in terms of looking at what, sorry, just gotta get this screen. Oh, I guess I am. Okay, sorry. In terms of looking at what our activities are, they're really clearly spelled out here. So inventory farms is surveys, National Register nominations. So identifying which structures are eligible for listing in the National Register. In our district, we'd be interested in which structures are contributing and which structures are individually significant. We would be looking at that and making that recommendation. Writing survey and planning grants, the preservation project fund. So if we have it, we would help our town figure out how to unlock funds to rehabilitate a municipal building and keep it historic. Doing the Section 106 reviews, public relations, which, so the activity that we're going to be engaged in with providing feedback on the Coon Street name change. That would be an example, I think, of public relations. Although this and the Arthur Cooper Monument, public relations, a lot of this is done by nonprofits. We don't need this as much as other places. Advising all of our municipal leaders, demolition delay bylaws. We don't need a demolition delay, but typically the determination about demolitions is allocated to the historical commission if you're not in a historic district. So preservation plans. So this is a zoning function, preservation planning. It's not the only zoning function, but it's right here. So I just want to have like an honest discussion about activities that are assigned to historical commissions by our Commonwealth and what activities are appropriate for Nantucket and what activities are needed for Nantucket. Local bylaws and ordinances. Nantucket actually has some of the strongest bylaws and ordinances already on our books. So all of these activities that we've been engaging in are assigned to us, and if we're in a town that doesn't want us to do these things, I think it's appropriate to try to have a collaborative discussion about who's doing them and are we happy with how it's being done? And really, what does the community need? I mean, this is not about like us. I mean, this is about the function, the need, protection, and taking a cue from established practice.
Hillary?
Yeah, who's that? Oh, Tom, hi.
Tom. I attended that workshop and I found it extremely interesting and quite valuable. I actually downloaded all the stuff that Chris had provided, which he said would be provided the next day or so after he got a chance to do it all.
Sorry, is this the preservation planning workshop, Tom?
Yeah, and I was going to make a little mini presentation to all of us, but I'm not going to delay the meeting with all that, but I did download it all. And I just want to say that you covered quite a bit of it with that one page, but there are actually what he had, and if anybody wants to go there, it will tell you a lot more materials that can be found on the website. There's like 26 of them, which is all put out by Chris. And it talks about, local commission resource libraries and all the kind of stuff you can find in there. You mentioned the demolition delay thing. I'm not sure why we don't need that, quite frankly. And I downloaded two specific different types of applications that two towns, one in Bolton, which is a small town like Nantucket, and one from Boston, which is about a 5-page application, and all the documentation that went on there. And there's public outreach programs that they do. It did also include what you just showed with the local historic commission and a summary sheet for the members, and it had a lot of material on the difference between a historic district commission and a local historical commission. And so it really was helpful in my mind in terms of understanding what it is we're supposed to do. And before we do our mission statement over, it might not be a bad idea to review some of that material.
Hillary, can I say?
Tom, oh yeah, Angus, go ahead.
Oh, um, I I think bringing this up, and I feel like that's a good point that Tom's just made about reviewing the whole list of things that a historical commission is usually tasked with when we're revisiting exactly how the mission statement reads. And to your point, Hillary, there's a whole list of things that that historical commissions have done, but may be handled by the town, and they may be handled or other departments may be handling it effectively. And if they aren't, we need to have a discussion about why and how we think that that could get remedied. But I, yeah, I feel like uh, we should be reviewing all these pieces to see what of this we're comfortable doing or offering to do, or let other people handle. And I was trying to get a comment in about Andrew participating in the meeting, and I understand that everybody in the town and all of us are busy. So if he's not able to participate, if it's possible for any concerns specifically to be written and shared with us so that we can apply them to our discussion. It's just not helpful to have a comment like, I have trouble with this, but nothing, specific. So we need to have specifics to work with.
Hillary, this is Tom again.
Yep.
Not only do I agree 101% with what he just said, I also would like to support Dawn's idea of a chart. Having been in corporate world myself, I couldn't agree with that more. That really helps separate who's on first and who's on second. It really is extremely good.
Yeah, I agree. And part of the learning, this has just been a really fascinating 15 months for me. And I think probably a lot of you feel that way too. And it's really only by declaring something that you flush out what people really think. And then you take stock of that and just try to iterate and triangulate on the right answer, I think. Holly?
First I wanted to thank Tom. I'm glad to hear that you're taking Massachusetts Historical Commission's, their workshops to heart and actually spending the time to do that. That's fantastic, and thank you. And education is the biggest thing, I think, because I know not everybody, is able to go to school and learn about preservation like I was able to. And that's what I think education is, the biggest component of understanding what the roles are. And I'm glad you brought this flyer up, Hillary. Actually, I have this printed and I keep it available as a matter of fact, a lot of MHC's flyers, if you will, in my office at work. But I also want to just caution everybody I think that's also important to realize that not every historic town, especially in the Commonwealth, has the availability of having 2 commissions. And the fact that we Nantucket had the foresight to understand the importance of preservation and have our local districts in 1955, that within itself is a great accomplishment. So other towns who didn't get the preservation bug until later on, most of them have 1 commission. So there are roles, I think, that both commissions can play together, but there's other aspects in here that are already done. I'm very happy that you all have stayed in this role, participated, advocated, because preservation planning is important, and preservation for a National Historic Landmark, who's, you know, again, we were the second after Charleston in 1930 in the country. I guess we're tied with Boston, Back Bay, but you know, there's a reason for that. We've always, you know, I think a lot of it had to come out with resiliency too, because, you know, we've been recycling structures for over 300 years. Why? Out of necessity. Now we do it more, I think, from a sustainability standpoint. But nevertheless, there, you know, Nantucket, we're so unique in so many aspects, and we have a lot of overlap with development, as far as, not development per se, but as far as organizations and departments. And I think the town has recognized that we don't want to be in silos. We want to work together, and that's a great thing. But you know, I encourage, if you all have not had the opportunity to sign up to the Massachusetts Historical listserv that goes out, please do so. There's a lot of information that is pushed. As a matter of fact, as soon as the grant information that Hillary referenced came out, Chris turned around and pushed it out again. So, you know, if you don't, even if you don't have the time to really read everything, having that information pop up in your email, and you can go back to it when you get a chance, is paramount. And you can also watch and read what other commissions in the Commonwealth are talking about. What are they doing? And you can also learn about, you know, what makes them different in their town than Nantucket. And I think that's also important in learning what everybody's roles are. So, thank you.
Thanks, Holly. I want to mention also, I think Tom isn't the only one who took the training. Clement, I think you said you took the preservation training workshop.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah, and I did too. So it was great. It's so great to have it available on Zoom. And that listserv that Holly mentioned, there's always interesting stuff coming up, and you really do feel part of a statewide community. So I second that, that suggestion. So I just want to summarize a little bit about what I'm hearing. So I'm hearing support, and I agree with it, about Don's idea for trying to create a chart. I'm sure as soon as we create a chart, people who are put in different boxes will have issues with the boxes we put them in, and we'll need to change the chart. But I do think there's merit in trying to create it, and doing it in a way where we run it by people and make sure it's collaborative. So I would definitely like to make a stab at that for our October 2nd meeting. Does anybody have any concern about that?
I'll work with you, Hillary.
That'd be great, Don. I don't know, you're a pretty high priced consultant. I don't know if I can afford you.
It's a matter of time, not price. I'm cheap.
Priceless. Okay, so hearing no opposition to that. I'm also hearing that we might, well, I suggest that we might take a bigger view about this page and rearrange, you know, what we might want to include on the page, and not feel like everything needs to get jammed into the mission statement. And that might allow us to have a very simple, minimal mission statement. I'm seeing Holly nod. Any other shows of support for that idea?
I want to, Hillary, I want to echo what Don had said. I liked how he, you know, said you could list it. So to do the simple and then say we do X, Y, and Z, and take it out of a paragraph format, but just list them out. I think that would be maybe helpful. Also, the notated statement in the old mission statement that was created from town admin, I presume, that said the Historical Commission creates educational opportunities, creates plans for the preservation of Nantucket. You know, I think that also can go back in there. There is the advocacy aspect too. You know, I know I made a comment about how, you know, Nantucket doesn't necessarily need that because we have such robust nonprofits that I think that the town likes to liaison, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't advocate. It's just like how, give you a prime example of what's happening right now, if you haven't followed it, is the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee for resiliency standpoint. They do that as well. They advocate with other people.
Yeah.
So, and other organizations. So maybe just having, break it up a little bit. So this is what we do, but this is how we do it. I just liked how he mentioned that. Thank you, Dawn.
So we'll work on that. Okay, so then participation for our meeting. So a couple people said, invite the public, get public input, make this a broader conversation. What's the best way to do that? Should we put this as a blast in the new and noteworthy? I mean, we can have a public hearing. So we could invite the public and have a time to have a hearing. I don't know if that's the direction we want to go. We could invite certain stakeholders, prominent people whose opinions we want, and if they can make the time, give them the floor. What I'd like to hear from the broad committee or commission about how to set this up for success. Yes, David.
I was just going to say, is it worth maybe putting together a subcommittee and to kind of make some headway on this so that we're prepared, going into that meeting with the select board?
Yeah, we can have a small group of people talking about these materials.
But I mean, I don't want to cut everyone out of it, but I mean, or if we could schedule a separate meeting where we can all, kind of go back over it as people are able to dedicate some time to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're trying to provide any answers in this meeting. I think we're trying to come to some agreement and make sure that we have the opportunity for people with different opinions to express themselves.
I understand. All right, on that note, guys, I've got to run. Thank you.
Oh, bye, David.
I'll see you
Thank
guys.
you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Hillary, it's
Yeah.
Clement. I was thinking a combination of what kind of Don has said and Tom has said. If we can all take a look at what other commissions around the state are doing, and that can be the start of sort of our who does what, because I think what's happened is we have tried to do things that other people think they're already doing. And so if we could kind of put that to bed about, yes, we know you do that, and we're going to take a look at this, and the fact that the HDC doesn't do anything about roads and sidewalks, that to me, I didn't know that. So there we are. That's a niche we can fill, and we've been doing it. So just kind of think about both things in terms of who does what, and maybe we can try to figure that out and then have the stakeholders look at it. I hate to include everybody. I mean, I think the stakeholders have to come first because they're the ones that care. So I guess we've got to all start and make lists of what we think we're doing, what we think maybe they're doing, and come to some meeting of the minds. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Clement. Any other, yeah, Tom.
There are, like I was saying, there in those materials, there are examples and plenty of them of other towns in Massachusetts and the mission statements of the towns and how they operate and what they consider they need to cover. And, we don't have to adopt all of that, but it certainly is, might help us think of other things that are, pertinent or germane to Nantucket that we could certainly, incorporate in our state.
Tom, could you send that to me?
Say again?
Tom, could you send that to me?
Yeah.
The examples of other mission statements?
Yeah.
Or, okay. So I don't, what I'm going to suggest is that I talk with Holly and Angus, Holly, Angus and I are the people who plan meetings. So I talk with Holly and Angus, if you two would agree, about who we might invite to this meeting. We should do this soon. Holly, we do need to make sure that the town Zoom is available October 2nd. Do you want me to start just reaching out to Erica? I really hate to
treat, to have you be like a scheduler for us. Is Holly still there?
Yeah, no, I've already reached out to her. I gotta re-forward my email because I know she's swamped. I don't know how the lady does it. To be honest with you, scheduling everybody and whatnot, and even stuff that's regulatory with the NCTV. So no, that's fine. Again, based on that draft list of dates, I have not secured any second meeting of the month. October 2nd is the only additional special meeting that
Right.
I've secured.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we can talk about that schedule. So, okay, I just want to make sure we didn't run into some administrative hurdle. But I'll talk with Angus and Holly about who we might want to invite. I'll work with Dawn on this schedule. And would anybody else like to work on some component of it, which you can present to everybody on the 2nd? Maybe some idea you have that you'd like to present about how the page should be laid out.
And Hillary, on that note, I just want to let the commission know, the town's public outreach coordinator, Florencia Rulo, is fantastic. She's who has pushed out all the town's different initiatives, helped me with Resilient Nantucket, has it on the website. If there is something that we want to have on the page, if there's something, a layout that we want to have, she's able to do that by certain standards. Nonetheless, she can accommodate us. So even if there's something that you all think, you found a document that you think would be very beneficial from the preservation planning world, we can have that up on the website. Just take a look at what the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee web page looks like, and that'll give you an idea of the repository of documentation that we can have available for the general public.
Okay, so maybe we link up with Florencia and do some advanced work before our meeting, and maybe she could even pop in for some Q&A. So is that a good plan?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so it's going to be part, mission statement, but it's also really going to be a discussion about who does what the functions are, what we're expecting to do. And I'm not going to suggest that we try to present on this for the meeting on the 7th. I think we just want an update on the certified local government. I don't think this is going to be ready. I think it's going to take a couple conversations to get buy-in and make sure that we're not going to be, putting this up and then have people say that you didn't talk to me about it. Does that sound good? Okay, yes. I'm seeing a lot of nodding. That by asking you, I'm realizing we didn't really take a vote to accept the historic goals. It's just the nature of this work that I'm working on stuff and I can't call you guys and say, are you okay with this? What are your comments? Does anyone want to make a motion to accept that historic goal and those steps as our, official advice?
So moved.
Okay, Clement, thank you. A second? Second from Tom. All in favor, Mickey?
Yes.
Okay, Georgia?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Angus?
Aye.
Don? And I'm also an aye. Thank you. So those are officially now accepted into the record as our goal for streets. I want to talk as we move on to the last part of the meeting about future meetings and possible topics. Holly, can you bring up that part of the, I can't even remember what's in the packet. Hang on. Oh, right. Okay, so I started thinking that it would be useful to have a running list of all of the things we are either actively working on or might want to work on. So on page 21 of the packet, I have just this list of everything that was in my mind, and I assigned it a number.
So 0 is that it's just an idea and we haven't decided to make it a priority. 1 is we've decided to make it a priority, but we haven't really done much about it. 2 is that we're, working on it. 3 is that we have a plan for it, have identified people are going to work on it. We have a plan for how to get it done. We have funding for it if that's necessary. 4 is that it's underway, and 5 is it's delivered. And some of these things we're just participating, okay, but they are activities that are taking up our time. And then we have subject areas, which are on the left, and maybe I could color code this, but I thought this might be something that we would just keep in our packet, so that we would have a reminder. And if there's something that we want to talk about in depth, we would need to put it on the agenda so that it's clear to the public that we're talking about it. So like, for instance, this historicals for streetscapes, that's going to turn to be a 5. I mean, it's kind of amazing. It's been quite a journey, but I think we're there. We have this fabulous report, which I hope you all will read and we'll talk about in the future. It's really just everything we wanted to know, I think. What do you guys think about this?
I think this is an excellent tool to really look at what are our topics and where are we with it. I think it's helpful to see.
I think it's very helpful, very helpful.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it really shows how much we have going on. Holly, what do you think?
No, I think it's great. I'm wondering, you must have created this in Excel.
Yes.
I would love to have a copy of the Excel spreadsheet so I can keep it handy, and
Yeah.
I think this is good. I was gonna ask you to identify what the numbers were. Maybe like a little notation of what those mean. That was my only curiosity, trying to figure that part out. But no, I think this is good.
It's in the spreadsheet. I just didn't like print on the page, so.
Hilly, I think also as we put together the roll chart, some of these things are things we will be doing. So it'll allow us, we ought to pick off of this, some of these items and some of the key pieces to say who owns these pieces. And we not be the owner, but at least gives us another information to look at.
Mickey?
Dawn, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. Mickey?
I was just going to make a couple comments. And one is perhaps the status is really important to see what's, where it is, but would you consider a column for priority? What are the most important issues we're looking at the moment? And then another comment.
Yeah.
Well, I was also just going to.
No, go ahead.
I was going to add another subject matter that you have a list of things that we're talking about. And I'd like to see Harbor Place down the harborfront area added to that list.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, we can put that on. We can't control it, but because there are going to be a lot of people working on that.
Hillary, I think to Dawn's comment about ownership, I think that's where it would be very important to include that on here. That it might not necessarily be something that you all as a commission are owning, but you are maybe a part of the conversation of that particular item.
So when you say ownership, you don't mean individual ownership. You mean, like I had put participating.
There's a difference between ownership and responsible for it versus just a participant to give input to.
So maybe sponsorship. Is sponsorship a good word?
Can be. When we put together the chart, let's decide what are the right words for each one, how we do it.
Yeah. When I think about an owner of an initiative, I think about, who's the project manager.
Right. You're driving it. You're the ones that are making certain it's going to get done.
Yeah, as an individual project manager, whereas I think what you're talking about is, you know, this is a planning board initiative, or this is a DPW initiative, or this is a
No,
coastal resiliency.
I'm thinking about, for clarity, it's this item is going to be completed by, and the group responsible for making certain it gets done is X. So
Yeah,
there may be
agreed.
other people they consult for, but they're responsible for making certain it gets done.
Yeah. So we could have, you know, lead owner, but then also stakeholders.
Absolutely, yeah. There's stakeholders that get consulted. There's some stakeholders that just get informed. They're on a communication list, but they're not involved in anything other than needing to know.
I mean, for me as
Thank you, Dawn.
for me as a non-corporate person, the word would be responsible. Who's responsible for getting this
Right.
done?
That's what we usually put an R in, Georgia,
Okay.
for responsible for doing it. That's right. And we usually put, sometimes we'll put a C for you get consulted. Sometimes we put an I for you have to support it. And sometimes we put or S for supporting, or I for just you get informed. Is not, you know, you don't have a real active role, but you at least get the reports from what's going on.
I think Don's charts will be extremely helpful, and especially in connection with this project list, Hillary. It's a great project list. It's brilliant.
Thank you, Georgia. All right, well, we will continue to work on this project list then, and use it as a tool to stay on track and achieve our goals and prioritize as well. I want to talk about now that topic of prioritizing. I'm just trying to find my packet here. So future meetings, what I'm suggesting, I'm really asking this commission if you would be willing to meet more often. Holly, don't I have somewhere in this, oh, here it is, in this packet on page,
Yeah, it's on the chart. It's on the screen.
oh, okay, good. Sorry, I'm looking at my other computer. So I'm asking if you all would be willing to meet every 2 weeks. And the reason for that is we're a working committee. You know, we don't have staff that's working, Holly's working on a lot of things, which she's bringing to us, but you know, we're doing a lot of this work ourselves. And it's just very helpful if one is producing work to be able to check in with people, and maybe have less long meetings and just work in more of a rhythm. Now, I want to be really sensitive and grateful to Holly because she's got a ton on her plate. She's very busy with the HDC, and she can't necessarily come to 2 meetings a month of the NHC. So, but I do, you know, Holly, you're invaluable when you're here. We can also, you know, meet and work on things and then circle back with you. So I just wanted to hear what people thought about, you know, meeting every 2 weeks. Maybe some of those meetings would be shorter. If we didn't need the meeting, we can always cancel it. Comments?
Hillary, this is Angus. I feel like, I mean, I don't know any of us who aren't busy. I mean, we all have very full lives. So I feel like, you know, we can just sort of take that off the table because it's a given. I feel like meeting once a month feels like a long time between meetings to accomplish everything, as you remind us with that list of tasks that we're working on. So it might be beneficial for us to meet more often. But you know, again, we're all busy. So in some ways, it might alleviate, less out of meeting time if we're talking more in meetings more often. And maybe we give it a try and see how it works for everyone. And if it's just overwhelming, then we can back off of it. But I think it's a good suggestion to meet more often.
It's Clement, I just think, I think it's a good suggestion to meet more often, and yet what we've just generated from this meeting is a lot of work for several people to try to come up with the charts and the mission statement and who does what. So the time between meetings could be used well for what we've assigned people to do over the next month.
So, sorry, Clement, was that in?
Well, that was just kind of a statement that says we've just given everybody a lot to do. I mean, I'm willing to do every twice a month, but if we find out, I guess, that at the next meeting we're just still haven't gone anywhere because we had so much to prepare for the meeting, then maybe we could cancel a few of them.
Yeah, if we haven't made progress and there's nothing, no updates.
Yeah. There always seems to be updates and something new to deal with, but.
I mean, I really enjoy our meetings. I love seeing you all, but yeah, I don't know. Is there anybody who really does not want to meet? Holly, what's your feeling about these extra meetings, and what would you like to do, and what would you recommend?
You know, I mean, and I understand, you all know that I'm busy, but you all are busy too. I get that. I wholeheartedly get that. I'm just, the first and foremost is making sure, again, the town has gone above and beyond, I think, of trying to make all our commissions and committees and boards accountable and meeting open meeting law requirements, even though the governor has, restricted, and lessened them, if you will. So we have the regulatory boards that are met with NCTV. We have we have 3 committee meetings just like this that are available. I have to confirm with town admin, but I also have to make sure that, I have availability, because again, there's no other staff that's assigned to you all. Sorry. And, there's other initiatives that I'm getting dragged in, kind of bringing up like what Dawn was saying, as far as, there's all these different priorities, and are you a stakeholder, or are you, actually in charge of that that particular project or what have you? And there are things where I am a stakeholder, and there are things that I am, intimately involved with. I don't want you to lose hope, but I also want to appreciate, the fact that unfortunately I am the only staff member that is available to you all as far as these meetings. The town is just, with COVID and all that, the plus department is down a couple staff members that they can't get filled. All the case, I think we're doing good in the world of COVID. Unfortunately, we're going to have to continue meeting remotely through the end of the year. I haven't heard word where town is headed after the fact. I'd have to see the availability, and I have to make sure that my schedule would account for it. I want to just remind you all that Resilient Nantucket, we're at the ending stretch, if you will. June of next year is when we're going to have a final document. So I'm in the process of creating and setting up those meetings for the community charrette that's going to be coming up, and the additional community forums. There's going to be 2 more of those. So, and that's something that you all are a part of.
Yeah.
That's part of preservation planning. That's very important. Also, you were probably aware of the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee's recent, or maybe not, discussion with the new Coastal Resiliency Plan consultant. And our consultant for Resilient Nantucket, Lisa Craig and team, the Craig Group, are also included in the company that was chosen for the coastal resiliency plan, which is a fantastic thing for the preservation planning world, for Nantucket, because we're going to have that cohesion, if you will, between our initiatives from a preservation planning standpoint and the resiliency for the natural world. So that's fantastic. However, those public meetings are going to be taking place. So there's going to be, you get to a point where, the average person can get zoomed out.
Yeah.
And,
Holly?
and that's
Holly,
unfortunately the way the world's going. Mhm.
so Holly, just a point of clarification. I mean, there's stuff that we're going to work on and we want feedback on. And then we're going to, present to other people, including to you. And, if we have to have a public meeting, we can't meet as a group without having a public meeting. And in this world, it needs to be on Zoom. I mean, there are committees, like there's a government study committee that the question is, do you have to be at our meetings, or can we meet on the town, Zoom channel without you, being with us? Because if we wanted to call a meeting and, meet at the Athenaeum and you weren't able to come, we would certainly be able to go ahead and just meet as long as it was public and publicly noticed.
Yep.
So is that a question for Erica?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any committee, board, commission, what have you, that's meeting via Zoom without a staff. I'm
Okay.
not.
All right.
I can't just give that information out for these meetings. So yes, that would definitely be an Erica question.
Okay. So why don't I follow? I'm hearing from the commission that they would like to meet. There's a lot we're working on. As long as we cancel meetings, if we're not really going to be able to use the time well. And I'm hearing from you, Holly, that you're concerned about your being able to be available at all of these times. And so what I'd like to do is check with Erica about this meeting schedule and about how we do a meeting if Holly can't come. Okay?
Sounds good.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
For our next meeting, we have the agenda for the 2nd. We also have a really important time as far as budgeting and town meeting. We need to end our meeting now, but Holly, can you just bring up onto the screen so a couple important dates. If any of you citizens want to put work on some laws, this is the time to think about that. The planning board is having their meeting on Monday to talk about zoning. And I don't know how we're going to have a town meeting in April or what it's going to look like. We've got a huge backlog of stuff that was already presented. So it's certainly not going to be a typical year, but this is typically the time when, if there's laws or changes or commenting on other laws that other people are putting forth, this would be the time when we get a grip on the schedule and start to do it. So I just want everybody to look at this, and I want to put on a future, meeting, a discussion of, anything that we might want to do. We did propose a bylaw, which we proposed an amendment to a bylaw. We got positive feedback on it. It was considered too late to be, in the select board's platform. It was about, making it necessary to retain the historic material in the street. So we were promised to be able to bring that forward at the next town meeting. So I'm going to certainly bring that up. But let's put that on now that we're meeting more frequently. We can get together, look at this list, and talk about what we might want to do. The last business that was not anticipated in the last 48 hours, it's not really business, but I just wanted to ask if anybody had attended the Land Council's virtual meeting. No.
No.
I listened into it. Oh, you did, Holly. Great. I thought it was fantastic. And it was really kind of a wake-up call for me about a wonderful model of a nonprofit, a town commission, and town staff all working together. The nonprofit being the Land Council and the
the Conservation Foundation, then the town, both with the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee and the Conservation Commission. And I just thought, we need to do this. Like we need to be thinking about how we work collaboratively with all of the stakeholders in preservation to have these community discussions and provide really valuable information. And, I think that does happen, but I thought it was a particular show of strength in that meeting. And I'd love it if people could maybe, if you have the time to at least tap into the first part of that land council meeting, and maybe at a future gathering, we could talk about that being how do we get from where we are to there. Holly, you saw the land council meeting. Did you have a thought about that?
No, I mean, it's something that the collaborative effort is fantastic. I mean, I also I don't want to, preservation, yes, is kind of siloed, but in our world as a coastal historic community, we're not siloed. Resiliency and preservation go hand in hand. So I would encourage you all, if you do have any extra time, the efforts that we as a town are working with this coastal resiliency plan coming up, and the efforts that were done with Resilient Nantucket, and what the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee is doing, with town staff. There is a role. The HDC has stressed before to me about the fact that Concom, has certain regulations and requirements when it comes to, mounding and whatnot down in the low areas. Well, again, all of these topics are going to be coming up to fruition. Is that appropriate aesthetically from the historic perspective? So, as much as watching what the Land Council has put together with all those different efforts and entities together, we're kind of in the middle of that right now. So if you guys did not have a chance to look at what NPT put together last week, and then our Resilient Nantucket, see how it all blend together, and see that initiative that was started last year with the Keeping History Above Water conference. This is where a lot of these initiatives are going. Preservation is not just a siloed aspect, and the fact that we are a coastal community, and other communities within the Commonwealth are looking at Nantucket as a leader. That's awesome. We're in the middle of some important aspects. And if you've ever followed the Keeping History Above Water initiative that Newport Restoration Foundation started in 2016, their next conference is planned to be in Charleston, South Carolina, the first historic district in this country. So, again, there's a lot of these different initiatives that are working hand in hand. And I sit, when I can, or when I'm asked to the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, and they were, they kind of started around the same time you guys did. I believe they've been around about a little over a year now too, and they've been trying to meet twice a month as well. They've got a lot of different aspects that are going on. But, I think there's some collaboration there with these different initiatives with the Coastal Resiliency Plan and Resilient Nantucket. So I just would encourage you all to see where we're going with these planning efforts and where we have these funding available, and try to put those as a priority as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Holly. And it just made me really appreciate the Nantucket Preservation Trust too, because they've been doing a lot of this. And I think we should all work together, put our best foot forward for preservation. Does anybody else have any other business or any other comments? No? Okay.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Nikki?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Georgia?
Bye.
Angus?
Aye.
I'm an
Hi.
okay.
Great to see you all. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
I'll call you later, Hillary. We'll figure out how to get together on this.
And
Thanks.